Let's wind the clock back a few years. It's 2009, and the then current generation of consoles is about halfway through its lifetime. E3 is right around the corner, and Sony has been setting the stage for what would set the tone and give them traction through the rest of that generation and well into this one. Now at this point, Sony was still reeling from the debacle that turned out to be the PlayStation 3 launch.
Everyone, this is PlayStation 3.
After the huge success of the PS2, there were many expectations awaiting the PlayStation 3. And for all purposes, by the time the console saw its end, it either met or passed them. The power the console had at its disposal was simply not able to be matched by the Xbox, not to mention Nintendo's Wii and Wii U, which were the concurrent models by Nintendo at the time. And even though Nintendo will always be Nintendo when it comes to first-party games, I don't think anyone can say Sony does anything less than deliver in that aspect. So what was it? The blame is usually put on two things. One of those surprisingly also happens to be a reason why the PlayStation 3 is technically a superior machine to the competition. As I mentioned before, the PlayStation was a powerhouse. Sony decided to go for power and therefore went with a more powerful chipset. The chipset, however, even though it was powerful, was very difficult and more costly to develop games for, which in turn clearly made third-party games easier and cheaper to develop for the Xbox. All this at a time where online games such as Call of Duty were at their peak. Not to mention two of the Xbox's best first-party games happened to be shooters at the peak of their popularity. The other, and the biggest factor, was a monstrous price point it was announced at. Starting at $4.99, it killed one of the biggest, and by that point expected benefits of PlayStation: affordability. By this point with the PlayStation 1 and 2s, gamers knew they had a reliable console at a price point that made sense for them. Now, as I've mentioned before, this generation of consoles rose at the high of the online shooter, with the most popular titles being Call of Duty. People who wanted the console to play with friends online simply had a cheaper and arguably better solution due to the partnership at the time that Activision held with Microsoft, and the sales figures supported this. By the time 2009 had rolled around, the PlayStation needed saving, and at E3 that year, although often overlooked, is what helped change the PlayStation brand for the next decade and possibly even beyond it. During that E3, Sony did a few things that would go on to be significant. Now to be fair, Sony took steps forward all of 2009, but at E3 not only did they re-announce the by then already confirmed PS3 Slim, they rebranded the name from PlayStation 3 to simply PS3. It was also around the same time their advertisements started to be funny and make more sense. Who remembers these? Now, who remembers these?
Dear PlayStation, I got a tip that you were making the PS3 $2.99. Confirm or deny?
$2.99? Bernie, you can't believe everything you read on the internet.
This is your house. You created this track, made these shortcuts. The whole PlayStation Network's scared of your squish block things. Yeah. This track's a part of you, like an undersized jockstrap. Yeah. Some Steve's gonna defile it like a junkyard sofa. Wrong. Wrong is so right, it's wrong, right?
I think so.
No, you know so.
I'm sure you remember both, but with different reactions. They also lowered the cost, which was previously seen in the video that just played, which was also previously announced. But during that show, they showed something they haven't shown in a few years: vision and a feature dedicated to the audience it should have been focused on from the start: the gamers. A huge change also happened at around the same time. Since the original launch of the PlayStation 3, like I mentioned earlier, development was a headache. After it had its time out in the market, however, like most things do, eventually the chipset development became easier, and after 3 years in the market, we started to see the true power that the PlayStation had to offer. Games such as Uncharted, God of War 3, Gran Turismo, and many others all looked beautiful, and third-party games typically either ran better or looked better in Sony's machine. Sony took the momentum, and the huge sales gap by the end of 2013 had greatly diminished. 2014 would also prove to be a huge year for Sony, and as they had to execute the transition from PS3 to PS4. Not only did they execute it perfectly from a business point of view, but they did it with the help of one of the best games in history, and arguably the loudest swan song ever heard in the masterpiece that is The Last of Us. Few, if any, games that generation garnered as much hype as The Last of Us did, and fewer games delivered such an unforgettable experience. Everything from its storytelling, the character development, and multiplayer was simply amazing, unique, and it helped give gamers a taste of the type of games that would be available on the PlayStation 4. Within the year, it would also be remastered for the PS4, and somehow looked even better. And so, from 2006 to 2013, Sony basically played catch-up. And even though today, overall sales of the PlayStation 3 are more than the Xbox 360, back then that seemed like almost an impossibility. Although an argument could still be made that at the time, PlayStation was still the best console of a generation. Then came E3, the long-awaited E3 which brought the announcements of the next generation of console gaming. Xbox at the time still had a sizable lead over the PlayStation, and they were hoping to carry that into the next generation and expected a hit when they announced a new console. Not only was it a console, but it was an entertainment hub. The Xbox was announced, and even though it offered great features, it was something missing. Microsoft decided to focus on whole home integration and forgot that E3 is a place where we expect games, gaming news, gaming trailers. I didn't care that the new Xbox can show what I have on my TV. I wanted to hear about the new Gears of War, about the new Halo, what new IPs they were working on. But at the end we got nothing. And they ended up announcing 3 things that would effectively end the console generation war before it even started. The console would require a constant online connection to do anything at all times. That meant that you could be paying for Netflix, but unless you had Live, you couldn't even watch it. Oh, and no more used games. You couldn't go to GameStop or even a buddy's house and buy or borrow a used game, and vice versa. You couldn't let your friend borrow that Xbox game you played and haven't touched since that Angry Orange got elected. And the price point. Taking a page right out of Sony's book, they announced a price, $499. The reason? The Xbox also came with a Kinect, a device that by then had seen its popularity rise and fall drastically, as it was an essential part of the console. Sony made the most out of the opportunity. Their E3 by contrast was all about gaming. They announced multiple launch titles that excited. You can use games as you want once you buy them, meaning you sell them or let anyone borrow them. They focused on indie gaming and made it known that the best place for small indie developers was with them. Games such as Journey and Resogun are great example products of that focus. You see, what Sony did in 2009 is what Microsoft didn't do. They fixed the issues and concerns during that same generation. They fixed their image as it was being tarnished and earned back trust during that same generation and managed to turn the PS3 into a success story. Xbox tried to correct themselves, announcing shortly after E3 that the online and used game restrictions would be removed due to demand. They tried to make it seem as they did it all because they listened to the public. The issue is that the public saw this. They saw that they started changing not because they cared about the customer, but because they had no choice. The average gamer by this point had already felt betrayed based on what they wanted to do previously. The damage had simply already been done. Now, while the PS3 still had exclusives during its down period, with such as Resistance and Uncharted, the Xbox had nothing. In fact, it could be argued that aside from the Forza series, this generation has been a failure to Microsoft from that specific point of view. Huge games such as Rise were released to lackluster response, and games like Sunset Overdrive, while I must admit extremely fun, were not a good enough reason by itself to buy an Xbox. This is why the next generation is make it or break it for the Xbox home console. If they can address the gamer, show that gaming is what they want to get back to at its roots, then they can get back our trust and have a shot of going on another generation. But even then, they have to produce better first-party games. I'm a PlayStation fan all the way, but I don't want to see the death of the Xbox, because competition is better for us as consumers. The drive to beat the other often leads to innovations and risks. Risks are great. Horizon Zero Dawn was a huge risk for Guerrilla Studios, but how did that turn out? Horizon is one of the best games of this generation, but with the recent Gears and especially Halo, of which I am particularly a huge fan of, entries have been disappointments and they need to be properly resurrected. My opinion? I don't think the next generation will be the end of the Xbox. Microsoft has taken steps to correct themselves. It's now starting to focus on gaming by acquiring more studios and pleasing the right people. The question remains, however, if they'll get any of their old faithful back. As mentioned before, Sony fixed the issues and backlash that plagued the PlayStation 3, and fixed almost, if not all of them, before the console cycle even ended, so people had reasons to be excited for the new PlayStation 4. Meanwhile, Xbox is laying all its chips on the next generation. I myself will be getting the new system whenever it drops, as a hard gamer, classic titles and entries in the Halo and Gears of War series specifically have me hooked. However, how many other people are willing to take a chance with a $400 to $500 system when the competition has more than proven itself at the same price? maybe in another 10 years I'll be here saying how Microsoft changed it all with the new Xbox One Series X with the official announcement. Either way, as consumers, love or hate the brand, the best thing is for the Xbox to be a success. So Microsoft, please and thank you. Try your best to make sure that the Xbox Series X is the best success it can be. Hey guys, thanks for watching my first YouTube video. I know it probably wasn't the best, especially when it comes to sound quality. I know they say editing and sound is definitely the easiest. It definitely was, but there's still a nice learning curve that I have to get to. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hit like and subscribe, and just be on the lookout because I am going to be posting a video sometime soon in the next week, just describing the overall theme of my channel, because it's not just going to be solely about gaming. It's going to be about a few other things. But yeah, thanks for watching today, and I hope you tune in next time. Peace.